there's really no substitute for the fact that we all have 24 hours in a day. And really, if you sleep and take away the other kind of hygiene moments, you really don't. You only have about 12. What are you going to do with your 12 hours? That's going to give you the production that you need, that's going to further your life, that's going to give you the excitement that you want in your life, and get you where you want to be in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, etc. So work helped me learn that.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Anchoring Hope podcast, where we're interviewing leaders of faith, business leaders that also have faith, and how the Lord Jesus Christ have helped them to get to where they are now. Today we have with us Matt Child. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Thank you.
Matt, for the audience, can you give me your full name? Where do you live and what do you do for a living?
My name is Matt Child. I live in Utah, and I am the CEO of Utah Independent Agents. We're the Insurance Trade Association here in the state of Utah.
Insurance Trade Association. Mm-hmm. How many insurance companies do you oversee?
Well, we represent over 1,000 individual agencies here in the state of Utah, which compromises about 6,300 people.
300 people. That's pretty good, eh?
Yeah, 6,300. Yeah, it's a pretty good sized organization.
That's wonderful. Matt, let's take a look at your story. I love insurance. A lot of my clients, I run a software company. A lot of my clients are insurance agencies and insurance providers, the carriers. And I know it's not an easy business, and it's overloaded with competition. And you're actually running the association for all these guys. So That's got to be fun. How do you make it to that position, to that level?
Well, I've been in the insurance business for over 30 years at this point. I started in my parents' agency in Layton, Utah, working as a CSR, cleaning toilets, cleaning the office, doing paperwork, all the grunt work, if you will, and then progressed to where I took over for my mom when she decided to leave the agency, and we had 5 employees, and I was the primary producer and in charge of some folks there. And we decided to sell the agency, at which point I went to work briefly for State Farm, and then did a bit with aviation insurance in Park City, Utah, and that was exciting, and went all over the world with all the trappings of huge expense accounts and glamorous travel, etc. And then left that and joined AIG as a marketing representative in charge of Utah and then Idaho, and interacting with agencies, training them, finding new agencies, opening markets, etc. And then was recruited away from them by Allstate to manage their Encompass brand in the state of Nevada, where we moved to Las Vegas, Nevada. And then that expanded to include Nevada and Utah and Arizona. And then through working hard, was promoted and managed the Southeast and moved to North Carolina for a while, and then Tennessee. And then we moved back to Utah about 7 years ago, when I got this position.
So a full circle.
Full circle, yep.
There is nothing more refreshing than when you go to an association and the one that is running it actually understand the business.
I hope so. That's the goal.
Because I'm in the tech industry, and I have been to some associations where the people that run the association don't understand the business. Yeah. They're just business people. And especially with insurance, I mean, this is very different. It's a very different environment. When I moved to Canada, I moved to the insurance capital of Canada. So where we live, most of our revenue comes from carriers and insurance agents. Like somehow there is a hub where I live about insurance, you see. In your case, your parents got you started with this. Was that because of you desire to start working there, or they force you? What was in your mind?
Well, I was at the time I was 16 years old, and I had been working construction, like so many strong teenagers do in the area. Utah's a growing state, and I was making very good money, and I was sitting at home one Sunday afternoon watching a football game in the fall, and my parents came in and turned off the TV and sat down on the coffee table across from me and said, we got to talk to you. And I thought, oh no, what did I do? What's happening here? And in truth, what it was my dad was working outside the office. He never worked in the office. He always had a secondary or primary breadwinner job. And they said, hey, look, we've got the agency. Your mom needs some help. We really can't afford help from an employee perspective, but you live here. You eat our food for free. You're our son. You are now hereby drafted, into the insurance business at 16 years old. And I said, okay, well, I'll make you a deal. Because, in my household growing up, if you wanted to go out with friends or go on a date or whatever, you paid for that yourself, and you paid for your own gas in your car and etc. And I said, okay, you put gas in my truck every week, and you pay for one date a week. That's my salary. And so, back then in the early 90s, late 80s, it would have been probably akin to somewhere around $30 a week is what I started working at, so about 25 hours a week, 25, 30 hours a week. So I made about $1.25 an hour for the first couple of years working in the agency for my parents. And that's kind of how I started, and you get exposed to it. You learn the industry, you gain that invaluable experience. Not that there's anything wrong with a kid that grows up mowing lawns or doing all the other traditional jobs that kids do. But when you have this real world experience that is valuable once you graduate, you can get your college degrees and things like that. My experience in the insurance industry made me much more valuable to stay in the insurance industry than to take that and transport that to another industry. So it just kind of stuck, and I've been in the insurance business since.
Isn't it fascinating that since you were 16, you were exposed to insurance?
Yeah.
It's almost like, it reminds me of Psalm 139. It says that there is a book written about your life. The Lord wrote a book about your life, and it's up to you to live it or not. But it's every day of your life is written there. Yeah.
Early on in my book, the chapter starts in insurance, obviously. So, yeah.
Believe it or not, we have similar stories. In my case, I wanted to become an airplane pilot.
Oh, okay.
The movie Top Gun?
Yeah.
That movie inspired me to become an airplane pilot. Plus, my brother-in-law was a pilot, and he will take me every weekend on his plane. And I just really wanted to do that. But, little did I know that it took a lot of money to become a pilot back in the day.
And time.
So we explored the military route, and that didn't work out. After 2 years of military service, I didn't make it to the Air Academy just because they didn't have any openings. So right there and there, my father told me, you should check these computer things out, and I was doing a typewriting course at school. Imagine, I'm so old that I wouldn't get my high school graduation if I wouldn't pass the typewriting exam. Remember the typewriters?
I do. I had type class. There was no computer class. It was type class on an old computer. An old typewriter. Exactly right. Yeah.
So, if I made a mistake, I would have to start the page from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so frustrating to me. And then my uncle, he was already a CIO for a big bank back then. He took me to the data center on the weekend and showed me my first text editor on an AS400. And I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
And he showed me how to do, copy, paste, print, all on a green screen. And I'm like, so I don't have to start from scratch? No, you don't. You just go up and down with the arrows,
Yeah.
And I'm like, I got to learn how to do this. And I was 16 years old when that happened, exactly like you.
Yeah.
And I never looked back.
Away you go.
Matt, isn't it amazing that growing up with discipline makes up for a beautiful life afterwards, isn't it? You growing, like being a teenager and having a job with your parents, started your career, but also gave you the discipline you needed in life to actually thrive, right?
Well, I think not just a job for me, athletics, sport, participating in sports through high school as well. The whole idea that idle hands, or the devil's work type of deal. I had no extra time. So if it was in the fall or summer, I was at football practice, and then after football practice, I'd go to work in my parents' agency. And in the wintertime, it was indoor track and then work in my parents' agency. And then in the springtime, it was track and field and then work in the parents' agency. And so it was about learning to schedule my time to where I could get my schoolwork done, because you have homework, you have other things that you need to do, but also to prioritize what's important. So the discipline, I think, is part of that lifestyle that unfortunately in today's youth is lacking a lot, because they think everything's just easily attainable, whether it be a YouTube page or Instagram or some other social media situation. There's really no substitute for the fact that we all have 24 hours in a day. And really, if you sleep and take away the other kind of hygiene moments, you really don't. You only have about 12. What are you going to do with your 12 hours? That's going to give you the production that you need, that's going to further your life, that's going to give you the excitement that you want in your life, and get you where you want to be in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, etc. So work helped me learn that. Athletics helped me learn the value of hard work and discipline, the value of sleep and value of study, the value of all those things that come together. So yeah, it's a really, really important part that I'm trying to impart upon my son as well.
Yeah, and you touch a great point. I mean, for all parents that are listening, sometimes we make the mistakes that because our childhood was very tough and we had to do a lot of things and had to have discipline, we want to probably make it easier for our kids. And that's a horrible disservice, because once you do that, you're not giving them the skills they need to actually become a responsible adult, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, for my parents, it started when I was quite young. I remember when they moved us here from California, I was 12, 13 years old, and my uncles were all farmers. And they said, well, guess what? There's no more mowing the lawn or doing dishes for an allowance. You can go make money working for your uncle as a farmer. And so I would have to go, do the water turns for farming at 2 or 3 o'clock at night when I'm 13 years old. Or I would have to go pick corn or, thin the beets or do whatever we had to do for the squash, the plantings and all these other things. And be out in the fields when it's really, really hot, picking up, large pumpkins or watermelon or whatever else, and realizing that, that 1 ear of corn may be only 25 cents, but that truckload of corn is what my uncle uses to pay his bills. And so it's an important component to seeing the hard work result in something later down the line, instead of, I want it right now, I'll pay for it later down the line. It's a work then reward situation that farming taught me. It also taught me I don't want to do that when I get older. I better get a good education and a different job. I do not want to be a farmer. Bless them for doing it. I did not find any joy in it. It was just a means to an end for me. But it taught me the value of hard work, for sure.
And discipline, right? I mean, for me, those 2 years of military school really changed my life for the better. I remember, we were every single day when I was, when I was nobody, like the first 3 months of military school, they made me pick up garbage inside the school, outside the school, on the street, just pick up garbage. I learned the habit of having a clean environment. And if it's not, even if I didn't make the mess. So you know what, still nowadays, if I'm on the street and I see a piece of garbage, I just put it in the garbage, regardless, So they taught me how to leave a place better. Something so simple, right?
Yeah.
Right? Taking responsibility for others, right? Discipline, making your own bed right after you wake up. Little things like that if you look at depression on children, on especially Gen Z, right? They are so depressed because they lack so much discipline in their life, because their parents didn't even taught them that they need to actually make their bed as soon as they wake up.
Well, what's the value of achievement if you don't have to work to get it?
Exactly.
And so I think that's a big part of, like you taught in military school, or you do other church service things, or you do sports or farming, etc. All of those things teach you, I have to work for it first, and then I will get the results of that work. And someone that achieves more than me oftentimes outworked me. or did something different than me, or whatever the case. It's not just luck. And so, whereas a lot of times kids now are like, well, I want it because. Well, because why? What did you do to get it? What did you do to achieve it? You want fame. Well, who cares? You know, what are you doing to become famous? Are you bringing a value to the world? Are you bringing something special and unique? Most of the time, no. They just, well, I'm going to grow up and be famous. Well, why? How? Well, I just am. For what reason? And what are you doing now to achieve that, to lay the groundwork, the foundation for that? And fame is highly overrated. So
Merit-based achievement, not handouts. And you know, our society in North America became that this horrible woke movement that just ate us alive. But it started in the 90s. I remember taking my kids to soccer practices, and they were getting a medal even if they lost.
yeah,
Like, how do you teach children like perseverance and achievement if you do that?
yeah. Well, I remember going to a game. It's funny you brought that up. To see my nephew. It was before we had children, long before. And I walked up and I said, hey, what's the score? We were a little late. Like, oh, all the parents, we don't keep score. We're just having fun. I'm like, okay. You know, I'm not a parent in this scenario. I don't get to decide. Well, off they come at halftime, and my red-faced, sweaty-faced little 6 or 7-year-old nephew, he's pretty upset. I'm like, what's the matter, Parker? He goes, man, we're down 3-2. Parker's keeping score. The kids were keeping score. The parents were teaching these kids that working hard to win or working hard to achieve wasn't as important as we're all just having fun. Nah, at 7, I think it's something innate in us. We know there's a measuring stick. And whether it's somebody else's measuring stick or our own measuring stick, I want to have my expectations of myself higher than anyone else. Because then I will achieve more than anyone else, because I'm going to rise to my expectations. Right. And that's something I've begun saying to my son is, hey, expect more of yourself than anybody else. And you're not going to have a hard time with life, because your expectations of yourself are going to be higher than anyone else around you. And life is going to be easy for you because you're like, well, I didn't achieve what I expected of myself. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter that my teacher expected less, or that a C is an average and it's okay in school. No. I want to achieve a higher level of whatever it is, knowledge, scholastic achievement, physical achievement, whatever. And we've done a really big disservice, I think, to kids, and they're kind of impacting that world for us right now because they're in their 20s, early 30s, and they just think, well, I'm special because my mommy told me so. Mm-hmm. Why are you different than the other 10 resumes I looked at? What makes you more special when I'm trying to hire someone?
And my truth is their truth, even though it's a lie, right? And I have the right to paint my hair 20 different colors if I want to, or change my gender. That's the ultimate degradation is when you see people. I was just watching this Congress hearing, where this lady, at 12 years old, she had some puberty confusion, and the doctors told their parents that if they don't go through transition, she's gonna kill herself. So they made her transition. Now she's 20 years old. She's detransitioning, but her whole body is already completely messed up.
Yeah, forever.
Just because a doctor wanted to make more money, taking advantage of this horrible thing that finally we're getting rid of.
Parents need to be parents, not friends. And sometimes being a parent means no. And your kid's going to cry, or they're going to be upset, or they're going to be, and that's okay. Because later on in life, that kid's going to circle back to you and go, wow, thank you very much for protecting me from myself, from my bad decision matrix. Because I didn't have enough experience to know what I should or should not do. That's why a parent's there. My wife likes to remind me all the time, hey, your frontal lobe isn't fully developed until you're 25. So we are our kid's frontal lobe. We need to make sure that he's making the best decisions and developing the right way. And I think as a world, as a society, we need to let parents parent. Obviously, we intervene if parents are being, abusive towards a child. But a parent saying, no, you were born a girl, you're a girl. Exactly. That's not abusive. That's just fact. And
that's love, actually.
Yeah, we need to quit embracing things that aren't factual. Right. Our gender is intrinsic to who we are, how we were created. It's very important. It's basic.
It's incredible. Like even the fact that we have to talk about this is so shameful. Like I
It's
never
embarrassing.
thought, like even in the year 2000, like in 2010, I would have never thought that we would be talking about something so stupid and so obvious as this.
And little kids get it. I remember the first time my son saw someone presenting as a female that's clearly a male, and they were working at a gas station. We went in to get a drink or what after a bike ride, and I think he was like 9, maybe 10, and he goes, "Dad, why is that guy dressed up like a girl?"
Yeah.
he knew. He's like, I'm a boy. She's a girl. That's a guy dressed up as a girl. And he's like, and it's not Halloween. I mean, he knew that. He's like, we dress up at Halloween, we do whatever we want, but it's not Halloween. It's July. What's going on? And I had to have a weird conversation with him. Hey man, some people are just really confused, and I think it is cruel for us to reinforce that confusion.
Yeah.
I think that is cruel to that person. We need to help them through that challenge and that difficulty, and not be cruel to them. I think they do deserve our sympathy and our support, but not reaffirming their their confusion. If someone has schizophrenia and hears voices, I don't say, well, who's talking to you? Who is that voice? Let's listen to that voice. No, I quickly realize, wait, there's something that's wrong. How can I help that person overcome it? Mm-hmm. And how can I help them function in society as a normal contributing member of society that will then help them have a normal, successful life. And then the response is, well, who are you to decide what's normal? I'm not. You were born a boy. She was born a girl. This is a ridiculous conversation. I can't believe we even have to have the conversation. We shouldn't have to.
But isn't it amazing, Matt, that I can truly make the parallel from giving medals to all the kids, not just the ones that win, all the way down to this gender degradation. And it took from the 90s to now, but it actually happened. And now we have a pandemic. In Canada, 30% of kids, they say that they don't know what gender they are. 30%.
30% in Canada. What's interesting is when you look back historically, and you say, okay, in the 80s, what percentage of people? In the 90s, what percentage of people? In 2000s, et cetera, and you go, and it's this incredibly sharp angle curve, and you say, okay, well, what if it's a percentage, and it is just a natural thing? If I'm going to believe you for a minute, those people that espouse this idea, okay, fine, then the percentage shouldn't have changed from the 80s till today, because it's a naturally occurring thing. So what has happened in that 30, 40 year arc? Well, I'm no longer functioning in a society that is reaffirming environments, reaffirming gender differences. I'm sorry, I'm not equal to my wife. My wife is glorious and different, and I'm glorious and different from her.
Thank God. That's why we complement each other, right?
Those differences are what make us as a couple amazing. And I'm not better. I'm not. She can make a baby. I'm not equal to that. Are you kidding me? Right? And I'm bigger and stronger than her just naturally. I have bigger bone density, bigger muscles naturally. That's not equal. We're not looking about equality. We have to recognize there are differences, and those differences are complementary, and those differences are okay, and they don't preclude one or the other. And so. Yeah, to have this gender issue, it's super frustrating. I think we see a little bit of a tide turning in the environment since Trump was elected, to where, hey, you know what? He did an executive order that said, hey, there's whatever you are at birth, that's what you are, male or female, and that's it. Let's move forward with. We should not waste time on talking about things that are clearly the way they are. I don't waste time talking to you and say, well, the grass isn't green. No, grass is green. Water's wet. Sky is blue. Girls are girls. Boys are boys. That's just is. That's not debatable. They are what they are. And now how do we move forward and spend our time on more productive things? Spend our time on that things that will better one another's lives, that will better society, that will improve health, that will improve our abilities to move forward. That's where we should be spending resources, not debating in Congress or Parliament or wherever government you are on whether or not we should pay for gender-affirming care. That's a ridiculous statement.
Yeah. And how did we get here, right? I think it was a massive attack from the enemy. I'm not talking about, Satan and his minions. How, why kids are so confused here? Well, go look at the school libraries. It's full with homosexual propaganda.
Yeah.
Like they teach them since little kids this horrible idea. So you go home and you're like, Mom, what am I, right? We have gotten in Ontario so bad that my granddaughter last week, she lost a volleyball tournament. She's in grade 9. Mm-hmm. She lost a volleyball tournament in second place because the other team had a boy in it for girls volleyball. And my other two friends, they told me that in 2 different schools, 2 kids identify themselves as cats, and the teachers are supposed to treat them like a cat.
Well, cats belong in kennels. They don't go to school.
Exactly.
So is that
exactly? So it's like it's an attack on our youth because I think behind all this, it's a Marxist communist movement. I think behind all this, if you look at the free world, right? We live in the free world. Like, it's a beautiful place where you can actually grow by merit if you put discipline and effort, exactly the stuff that we're talking about, and you figure it out, and you have faith, and you pray, and you try to follow what your book is written about, you will actually make yourself somebody.
Yeah.
But what happens with communism? The government is so big, and it controls absolutely everything, and everybody eats, regardless. I'm not saying that people shouldn't eat if they don't work, but what I'm saying is you should be able to get the value in proportion of the value that you're giving. That's a free society. And if you look at our foundations, Canada, USA, where I come from, Guatemala, the constitutions are based on the 10 Commandments. It's Judeo-Christian values that creates the freedom. For example, one of the commandments, you shall not steal. What does that mean? That I have the right to own property. And if I have the right to own property, then I have the right to add value so I can get money to buy stuff. Mm-hmm. That's the definition of a free world. Sure. That's the definition of capitalism.
Well, and I would add to that a definition of a more enlightened society is one that does everything you've talked about based on Judeo-Christian values, but also realizes there are people that struggle, whether it be mental illness, physical infirmity, or what have you. That society does so well that it reaches down and takes care of those that can't take care of themselves, that lifts up those that need that little start, that little push to say, hey, this is how you can go take advantage of all that you can take advantage of in our society. That's a more enlightened society. I think that's where we have the opportunity to make an impact, and why our society's done so well in the past is because it did that. When you look at the impact of, whether it be communism, the adversary, whatever you want to put to it, is it degrades the value of leadership in a home, the value of family. Oh, well, you don't need a mom and dad in a household. You can be a single parent. And there are single parents that don't want to be single parents, that of no fault of their own. They had a spouse die, etc. Okay, that's challenging. But I'm talking about people that have multiple children out of wedlock, and I don't need that. The government will take care of me. Well, that's bad choices. That's unfortunate for the children because they're going to suffer the consequences of that. And so society shouldn't reward those folks. I lived in England for a couple of years, and the amount of people that I saw with multiple children from multiple different partners was because the government would give them a bigger house if they had 2 or 3 children. And if they had 3 children, the government would give them a car and they would get more money. And I remember talking to one of these folks like, oh yeah, we're excited. We're going to go on vacation this year. We're going to go to Disney World in Florida. And I'm going, you've never had a job. What do you need a vacation from? You've got 4 children by 4 different partners. none of which you've married, none of which live with you. You have a house, you have a car, you have everything else provided to you from the government, and you have such excess that you can now afford to go international to a trip that I can't afford to go to. Something's broken in our society when we're rewarding those bad choices and not valuing the traditional family environment, and putting responsibility on the fathers who are fathering children out of wedlock, and responsibility on mothers who are doing things that they shouldn't be doing as well. There's value in that, and there's respect that needs to be taught to our young men towards women, and women that need to be taught respect for themselves and respect for men that do respect them. All of that comes in those Judeo-Christian values that it seems like we've gotten away from, and we've gotten to this, well, everybody wins, everybody gets a trophy, everybody gets a medal, everyone's special. No, they're not. Average is average for a reason. Bell curves exist for a reason, because they all clump around the median. It's right there. What do you need to do to be outside that bell curve is you need to be exceptional. You need to hold yourself to a higher standard than the average. And you live outside that area. And that, I think that's what we need to start teaching our kids today, is to hold yourself to a higher standard.
Yeah. And circling back, right? Like, kids that have this type of problems is because they have so much time in their hands that all they, like, if you know, the Bible says the same thing too, right? Like, time is evil. Get busy because time is evil. If you're like you, right? Imagine you when you were a teenager. You were going to work to your parents' business. You were in sports and you had to make grades in school, in high school. And you could do it all. Why? Because you had the discipline, and that gave you no time to explore stupidity and sin and horribleness.
Yeah.
Right?
On top of that as well, what did kids fill their time with? You know, you and I are not that far different in age. When we were growing up, you went outside. You went outside to play. And it was, well, what are you going to do today? Well, I'm going to play. What does that mean? I don't know. I'm going to meet up with my 3 buddies. We're going to hop on our bike. We're going to go explore this ravine, or we're going to go do this. We're going to go hike. We're going to go and do. That's what we're going to do. I don't know what that is, but that's what we're doing. Now, what do kids do? They sit behind a computer and they play video games all day. And they don't develop the skills of, adventure, the skills of problem solving. They are presented with entertainment in front of them all the time that doesn't require their brain to function. It just reacts. And then they look at the computer, look at social media, and they say, well, this is someone else living a life, and isn't that neat? Well, put the stupid phone down and go live a life.
Exactly.
Go experience it yourself. Go on that hike. Go on that bike ride. Go explore these things. Yes, fine. Use the internet or what have you for inspiration for the place you want to go next, and then work hard to develop a plan so you can afford to go do that, whether it be time or money or adventure or whatever. Plan your next trip. What are you doing next? Instead of, well, next I'm going to look on Instagram for the next 2 hours, and you have no time to read a book. You have no time to learn something.
Once you're watching Instagram, then you start getting bombarded by all these gender confusion people that are showing themselves up doing horrible things to their bodies.
Yeah, even if you don't look at that, it's still about the idleness of it, right?
Yeah.
Quit being so idle with yourself. Go and do something. Go and achieve something.
When you go outside and play, you're right. I spent all my youth going outside and playing. I didn't know what I was going to do either, and I had fun 99% of the time. Yeah. Sometimes I will get off. I will have an accident. I will break. I will. Hurt one of my legs. But that's it, right?
Yeah.
But you know what that's teaching? What that taught us is how to manage risk, and how to confront the life in a way that you don't know what's going to happen, and that's okay. You can still take a leap of faith. It gives you faith.
Figure it out.
You're going to figure it out.
You will figure, and we would never, especially during the summer break, we would never come home and tell my mom I'm bored.
Exactly.
Oh, really? I got some stuff for you to do. How about vacuuming the floor? How about cleaning the toilet? How about what? Nope. We were never bored. because that meant you had to come home and do more chores. And we still had to do chores every week, but we had to do extra chores if we were bored. We were never bored. It was you ate breakfast and you left.
Right.
And dinner was when the street light came on.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you came home.
Yeah.
And whoever's house you were near, maybe you were playing in the backyard or whatever, well, you slapped some meat in between the, 2 pieces of bread, and that was lunch. And lunch was a grab and go. I wasn't sitting down. It was go out. I want to go do something. I want to go. And kids, what do you mean go outside and play? Well, what am I going to do? I got 3 balls in the garage for you. Basketball, soccer ball, volleyball, baseball. Figure it out.
Right.
Go outside and play. And you have a bicycle. You've got basketball hoop. You got fields down the street. You got a football over there. Why do I have to figure this out for you? But kids today are just dealt with play dates all the time. What do you mean a play? I never had a play. Did you have a play date growing up? I didn't even know what it was. You just went outside to play.
I don't think that word was invented yet. Because it wasn't needed.
Exactly. So no, it's a different world today. Unfortunately, you have to be a little more protective of your kids. But if you're fortunate enough to live in a good environment where there's a lot of safety and you're not too worried, I still think it's okay to say to your kids, go play.
Mm-hmm.
Go play. Figure it out. No computers, no phone, go play.
And it's another horrible problem too. Like, now you have 35, 40 years old addicted to video games.
Yeah.
Or they'd rather be playing a video game than spending time with their kids and their wife. Right?
It boggles my mind. I was just talking to my son about it yesterday. I'm like, hey, I think video games are fun, but you put a time limit on it. I'm going to go play, I'm going to play Mario with you for the next hour. And now we're done. And now it's over. We did that. That was fun.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. It's over. So I think that's, it is ridiculous that a 40-year-old man is like, well, I can't spend time with my wife because I'm playing, Madden 2024 or whatever on the computer. I'm playing a football game, or I'm playing Call of Duty or whatever. Well, guess what? You're not a secret operator. You're not, in the Navy SEALs. You're a 40-year-old accountant that doesn't want to spend time with his wife and kids, so you're disappearing into a game. That's sad.
And the example you're giving to your kids, right? And that's why I love this podcast, because I know people will listen to this and we will gonna make them think if they're doing these things, because it's about repentance and correcting your path. I mean, we'll make mistakes. I made so many mistakes in my life, but now that I have a white beard, I'm finally in the narrow path. I'm finally trying to behave the way the Bible says that I should behave.
Well, can you really stand up and lead your home if you're on the computer all day every day? When you're home, I mean, I work on the computer a lot for my job. I'm not playing video games. I'm internet and doing a lot of other things, but emails, etc. But when I'm home, are you really home if you just come home and you log on, and you do that? I mean, okay, if you need 30 minutes to escape and kind of unwind from the stress of your day, fine, take it. But then, clue in. I watched a really interesting thing on parenthood, and they interviewed the parents first, and they said, who would you like to have dinner with the most? And the parents were naming famous people, musicians. I think one parent said something, it wasn't alive or dead, it was just who's alive, and they named somebody like the Pope or their local pastor or prophet of their church or what have you. And then they interviewed the kids and let the parents watch it. The parents weren't in there. And each set of kids, there was, brother, sister, or 2 brothers, whatever. Each set of kids said, I just like to eat. I like eating dinner with my mom and dad. When the TV's not on, when we're not watching video games or nobody's on the phone. I like when we go out because it's just the 4 of us. Mm-hmm. And to see the parents like, holy cow. Wow. The people my kids want to spend time with the most are me. I need to give my kids the time. Yeah. And I think, I think one of the biggest fallacies, and it's unfortunate, is, that both parents need to work in order to survive. Well, maybe you need to adjust your survival expectations, because there's huge value to having a parent in the home and not having your kids raised by daycare. Mm-hmm. That you pick them up and you're not just grabbing McDonald's on your way home from daycare and that's the night. You know, it's like, hey, to have your kid come home to a loving mom or dad, and they're going through homework or they're going through activities with you, they're doing that. The kid that has that is the luckiest kid in the world right now. And the fact that the world made it sound like and diminishes the role of a stay-at-home parent to, oh, well, you're just a parent. No, dude, that's the most important job there is.
Well, that's forming our next society, and that's why we're in this condition. And that leads me to another attack. Right? Think about this, right? I look at the things in a macro level too.
Sure.
Before we dissociated the US dollar with gold standard, there was one parent always at home with the kids.
Sure.
But after that dissociation became, like after the dollars became fiat, which is currency, not really money, and we allowed the central banks to start printing as much as they want, that created inflation. And when you get inflation into your society, guess what? The one salary is not enough anymore. Now both parents have to work. And if both parents have to work, who's taking care of the kids?
But well, I would argue, do both parents, if as a society we said enough, right, then you can charge whatever you want. If I'm not willing to pay for it, then the price is coming down. If I'm just not willing to pay for it. If society we said is enough, no, if your wife's a doctor and you're going to stay home, fine, you're a stay-at-home dad. Or if you make more money potentially than your wife's education, then she's a stay-at-home mom. If society we said that's how we're going to operate, and that's what we're going to do, and we're going to adjust our life, hey, you know what? It's okay that I have an 8-year-old car. It runs really well. I don't need a 2-year car on a lease that costs me $1,400 a month, and I don't need 2 of those. And I don't need, 4,000 square foot house when I only have 4 of us in the household. It's okay. I grew up in a house. My mom stayed home. That's why I shared a room with my brother. And now they look at, I tell people like, the 2 of you sat in the same room. Like, how poor were you? I wasn't poor. My sister shared a room. I shared a room with my brother. It was totally fine. It was perfectly acceptable. Yeah. And most of the people in our neighborhood, the kids shared rooms. Now it's like, well, you have 3 kids. Well, you must need a 6-bedroom home. Why do I need a 6-bedroom home? I have, what's going on? And so I think we have risen with inflation at the same time with our inflation of expectation. That we must meet this standard that's way up here. It's okay that, hey, somebody stays home and we need to adjust our lifestyle to fix that. And on top of that, we need to say, hey, I need to make sure I'm getting the education that's going to enable me to do that. Instead of, hey, I've got a 4-year degree in a big student loan and I've got a degree in, medieval arts. Are you going to be able to, support your family on medieval art? What the heck, dude? Fine, it's an interest of yours. Study it all day. But go get a degree in something you can provide for a family.
And then do that as fun.
Yeah.
As a fun project. And go back to school if you want to after you have a sustainable job.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I study history all the time. I read books all the time about history because I'm immeasurably interested in history. What I could not see was a way for me to take my interest in history and turn that into an ample enough salary to support a family. Mm-hmm. I couldn't see it. Yeah. And it's sad. It's a statement that we don't value school teachers. When I was coming out of college, school teachers made, I think, $5,000 above the U.S. poverty line as a starting salary, starting wage. So it was a conscious decision about my sophomore year in college. Like, well, I think that'd be a great job. I'd love doing it, lots of benefits, but I can't survive on that money, so I'm not going to go do that job. Mm-hmm. Where so many people go, well, heck yeah, I'm going to do that job. Give me a loan to do it. So I graduate with a $90,000 loan, and I make $43,000 a year.
What a way to start your life, eh?
That's messed up. We shouldn't. Colleges should not allow that. As a society, we should say no. You can't make an 18-year-old that hardly knows what they're deciding now, and lock them into a $100,000, $200,000 loan. And as a college, because they measure it. They know what their graduates make after they graduate. They know their business graduates, their legal graduates, their medical school graduates, and their medieval basket weaving graduates make, coming out of college. They know that. And they, with good conscience, they're going to say, hey, yeah, here, sign this loan paper, and we know you can't get a job that's going to pay you more than $16.50 an hour working at Starbucks.
And it's going to take you 20 years to pay back your student loan.
Maybe.
Right?
Maybe. I mean, it's a joke, but Obama paid off his student loan during his first session as president of the United States. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That should have never happened. You know,
Amazing.
I mean, he's doing well now, but to think he had student loans until he became president of the United States, that's criminal.
Yeah,
It's a broken environment for sure.
Matt, thank you so much for your time. Almost 50 minutes went by. What an amazing insight and so many golden nuggets. I'll ask you one last question, Matt, before we finish the podcast.
Sure.
If you had access to a billboard in front of the busiest highway on earth, what would you write on it?
Wow, that's a huge question. Something along the lines that we've alluded to it, and it's been something that I've been thinking a lot about because I have a 12-year-old son, and that is, you will raise to the level of expectations that you have for yourself. And your expectations should be higher than that of society. You know, society's expectations should not be higher than your own. Something along the line. I'm not eloquent that way, to put it on a billboard, but rise to your own level, your own expectations.
And so that make the dare to have higher expectations.
Yeah.
Because that's how we became this incredible, North American continent. If people having higher expectations.
If this is a podcast on faith, right? Okay, or intertwined with it.
Yeah.
And we all agree that we're children of God, right? Wow, that's a statement. That's a wow. So if we really truly understand that, our potential as a result of who our Father is, our potential is massive. Why would we not strive to achieve it? Why would our expectation not be that high?
Yeah.
Where society says, oh, well, you were born in this environment, so you have this level of expectation. Someone that was born in a different environment has a higher level of expectation because of their what? No, we're all from the same Creator. And as a result, we're endowed, and our Declaration of Independence acknowledges that. We're endowed with that power. Why not realize that and say, hey, I can have higher expectations of myself because of where I really came from.
You know who puts expectations on people? Communism.
Well, and
right.
Others that don't want you to rise to their level.
Exactly.
And that therein lies a problem. So the billboard is something like, if you knew who you really were, you would not stop until you achieved your potential.
Amen to that. Man, thank you so much for your time, your wisdom. May the Lord bless you. If people like to ask you questions or get to know about your association, are you on LinkedIn?
I'm on LinkedIn, yep. You can find me, Matt Child, on LinkedIn, yep. And you can, I'd be happy to interact with you any way I can.
Matt, thank you so much for your time. God bless you and have a beautiful rest of the week.
Thanks for your time. Take care.
Bye. Thank you for watching another episode of Anchoring Hope, where we're shining the light in these last days and hoping for the best, because the best is in the Bible. Please share this episode, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also check other social media for more content. And as always, remember, Jesus Christ loves you, and I love you too.